Hello, my dear friends. You may know that my favorite beverage is Diet Coke. Now, I know that Diet Coke is not particularly healthy. I would be better off drinking water. It's just that I don't like the taste of water. Maybe I could change that. We'll see. By the way, you know that the President of the United States, his favorite beverage is Diet Coke. So there we have something in common. Okay, but that's just an aside. In many places around the world, Diet Coke is known as Diet Lite. In Europe, in Asia, in Israel, it's Diet Lite. And there's many other foods that are also have the word light as a suffix at the end of the word, and sometimes spelled L-I-G-H-T, sometimes L-I-T-E. For example, there's Bud Light or Miller Lite, two different types of beers, which I also don't relish the taste of beers. There's even Hellman's Light mayonnaise. So many foods have that descriptive adjective of light. Why in the world am I boring you with this trivial information? You'll see it's not trivial. It's very, very important for my drasha and the thought that I'm going to deliver today. It fits right in. And here's my Dvar Torah. The name of the parasha this week is Eikev. Eikev has two meanings. It means either because or it means heal. The Chumash says, "V'haya Eikev tishma'un." If you will listen to the mitzvahs, then you will be rewarded in the most magnificent fashion. There'll be no illness, prosperity, and peace. What does Eikev mean in this pasuk? So you would say Eikev means because. If you listen, because of that, you will be rewarded in these various ways. But the difficulty is the Torah didn't have to say Eikev. It could have just said V'haya im tishmon, if you will listen. So Rashi has a well-known explanation. Rashi says Eikev means heal. What does heal have to do with listening? So Rashi says there are mitzvos kalos. There are easy mitzvos that people trample with their doshba keva. They trample with their heel. So the Chumash is saying, if you'll fulfill the mitzvahs that people trample with their heel, the mitzvos kalos, the easy mitzvos, then you will be rewarded in this fashion. So the difficulty is, why specify the easy mitzvahs, the easy lift? The reward would be much greater for the heavy mitzvahs, not for the easy mitzvahs. And in fact, in the Medrash, the Medrash quotes a pasuk. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, "Avon akevi yisubeini," the sins of my heel will surround me. And the Medrash interprets that to say that David HaMelech says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm not worried about being punished for the hard mitzvahs, because those mitzvahs, the mitzvahs chamuras, I do. But I'm worried about that maybe I didn't fulfill the easy mitzvahs, the mitzvahs, avon akevi, the mitzvahs that I trample with my heel. That yisuveni, those will surround me when I come to the world to come, and that will be a source of anguish for me. So, but the question is, David, he's able to do the hard mitzvahs, but the easy mitzvahs he can't do. What does that mean? So I would like to suggest that the word kal has a dual meaning. Kal could mean easy, but kal also means light, as in Diet Light. And when you talk about Diet Light, it doesn't mean that it's not heavy. It means that it's inconsequential. That's why it's called Diet Light, because there's the caloric content is inconsequential. That's what Bud Light has no calories. So light doesn't when it's used with food doesn't mean that it doesn't weigh very much. It means that there's something inconsequential in that product. So mitzvahs kalos means mitzvahs that are inconsequential. So you'll say, well, what do you mean inconsequential mitzvahs? Well, all mitzvahs are consequential. So I would say it means the mitzvahs that people think are inconsequential. Of course, all the mitzvahs are important. But there are certain mitzvahs that people think are not that important. Those are the mitzvahs kalos. And because people think that they're not consequential and they're kalos, they're light, that's why people trample them with their heel. So the question is, what mitzvahs is that? What do you mean there's mitzvahs? Which one of the mitzvahs do we think are not important? All the mitzvahs are important. So I would say the mitzvahs kalos refers to Mitzvos bein adam l'chavero. You know, there's two categories of mitzvahs. The mitzvahs bein adam l'makom and mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero. There's mitzvahs between man and God, like Shabbos and tzitzis and tefillin and lighting Shabbos candles. And then there's mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero, the mitzvahs between man and his fellow man. The mitzvahs between man and God are chamuras. Those are severe. Those are intense. They're consequential. We understand that you have to fulfill those mitzvahs. But the mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero, we treat them with much less reverence. You say, how do you know that? Who said? Well, I'll prove it to you. When we want to talk about somebody who's not Torah observant, you know the Yiddish word for that is frum, somebody who's not frum, we talk about somebody that doesn't observe mitzvos, bein adam lamakom. But somebody that is not careful with mitzvos bein adam l'chavero, a person that has a bad temper, and he gets angry often, or he embarrasses people, or he speaks, or she speaks lashon hara, we would never say that person is not frum, that person is not a Torah observant person. Why not? Because in our minds, those mitzvahs are not as consequential. And one of the reasons is because, or maybe the main reason, is because the specifics of the mitzvah are not as detailed as when it comes to mitzvahs bein adam l'makom. The mitzvahs between man and God, they're very specific. The halachas of Shabbos, there's so many svarim that go through in English, Hebrew, exactly what you have to do to observe the mitzvahs of Shabbos. There's a specific formula for what to do. But when it comes to the mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero, it becomes very subjective. And we oftentimes delude ourselves into thinking, it's not so terrible, I didn't do anything wrong. It's not really lashon hara. I didn't really get angry. I didn't really embarrass the person. I didn't mean to do so. The person took it the wrong way. It's not my fault. Because it's not, there's no dogma. Although it's true, the Mishnah Berurah made, for lashon hara, he made a whole sefer with details about lashon hara. But many of those details are not that familiar to us, and we should be learning the sefer of the Mishnah Berurah, so it should be. We should know exactly the letters of the law. But because it's not so specific, so therefore the mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero are often not treated with proper reverence. So that's why the pasuk says that the mitzvahs that adam dash be'Eikev, the mitzvahs that a person treads with his heel, are the mitzvahs kalos. It doesn't mean the easy mitzvahs. It means the mitzvahs that we think are not that important. Yeah, okay, I know you're not supposed to speak lashon hara, but okay, so let's say I wasn't so careful. Well, I know you're supposed to give honor to people, but so I didn't do it. So okay, it's not the end of the world. It's those mitzvos. If you fulfill the mitzvahs kalos, the ones that the Miller Lite kind of mitzvos, where in the people's minds it's inconsequential. For that, the reward is enormous, and that's what David says. That's what I'm afraid of. The mitzvahs that are detailed in halacha, you open the Gemara, you open the Shulchan Aruch, everything is spelled out. I know exactly what I have to do. I'm not worried that I won't fulfill those mitzvahs. But it's avon akevi yisubeni. It's the mitzvahs that are trampled by my heel that I'm worried about, because those mitzvahs are easy to be negligent and not fulfill those mitzvahs. So I want to share with you two beautiful stories that I came across this week. One I read and one I heard. This week there was a person who was visiting the shul. His name is Rabbi Shmuley Machos. He's a nephew of David and Blimi Hamill. And I went after davening. I saw him in shul. I went over to say Shalom Aleichem. He says, this shul is so friendly. So many people came to say hello to me. It touched my heart, because that's something that is always has been very important to me and meaningful. That when people come into the shul, make sure to say hello. So I was so happy to hear him say that the shul is so warm, and it's Baruch Hashem. It's not only our Torah. It's all the shuls in the neighborhood are very friendly. We live in a wonderful neighborhood, Edison Highland Park. It's a friendly, warm, welcoming neighborhood. So we were talking, Shmuley Machas and I, about the importance of welcoming people. So he told me the following story. He said that when he was a teenager, he learned in Torah V'das. He was the Gabbai in Torah V'das. The Rosh Hashiva was Rav Pam, Rapam was a giant in Midos. He was outstanding, super sensitive. So he says Rapam never got upset. Rapam never got angry. Rapam never criticized people in a direct fashion. One time Rapam got upset with him. And when was that? He was the Gabbai in Torah V'das. And after davening, Rapam ran over to him and he said, Shmuli, during davening, I saw there was a person standing in the back who was a guest. Why didn't you give him an aliyah? He was the Gabbai. He calls people up for, why didn't you give him an aliyah? He was so upset that he didn't give him an aliyah. Why was Rapam, who was so calm, why was he so upset? Because for Rapam, the mitzvahs kalos, the inconsequential mitzvahs, the mitzvahs that people trample on, for Rabbi, those were big mitzvos. Those were super important. Human dignity meant so much to Rapam. So Rapam felt there's a person walks into the base medrash, you have to recognize him. That give the person his dignity by recognizing, by giving him aliyah. Now I have to state that this does not mean that in a shul you'll when your brother-in-law, your father-in-law, or your uncle, or your father, when they come to shul, you'll go run to the Gabbai and say, they have to have aliyahs. You know the story with Rapam? That's not the case, because in a shul, people pay dues and membership, and it's a very sensitive issue for people when they rarely or not ever don't get aliyah. So the Gabbayim work super hard to make sure that everybody gets as many aliyahs as possible. If we would give aliyos to every single guest that comes to shul, there would be nothing left for the membership, and that would create consternation. So therefore, it's not doable. But in yeshiva, where the yeshiva bachim, they don't care. No, when I was in yeshiva, nobody ever said to me, I never got an aliyah. It's not on the radar screen. So Rapam was so upset that he didn't give an aliyah to this guest. And that's an example of how you have to take a mitzvah that's kal, that not that it's easy, but that it's inconsequential, that people think, what's the difference? So what? So he's a guest. He came to Yeshiva. Do you think he cares? Rapam cared, because Rapam thought, it's possible that he did care. Because when you walk into a strange place, you feel uncomfortable. And it's incumbent on everybody to make the person feel at home, and therefore he felt that he has to have an aliyah. Second story, this I read in the Sefer. The Chafetz Chaim was a tremendous masbid, unbelievable. The Erev Yom Kippur, the Chafetz Chaim made, Rishon Meir HaKohen, he made a calculation of all the time that he wasted during the year. And he realized that the only thing he could come up with was that 16 seconds after he thought about every single moment, that he, instead of being engaged in studying Torah, he had wasted 16 minutes. And the family was passing by his study, and they heard him crying. And they walked in, they saw the tears rolling down his face. What was the problem? So he said, because I wasted 16 seconds this past year. So you see what a tremendous masbid the Chafetz Chaim was. Nonetheless, the Chafetz Chaim, he would sit in his study or in his base medrash and learn, and he had many svarim out that he was used to look up whatever he was learning. And throughout the day, people would come to see the Chafetz Chaim. They would come for a bracha, or they would come for an eitzah, for advice. As soon as somebody would walk into the Chafetz Chaim would close all the svarim. He had 10 svarim on the table, close all the svarim. So the family afterwards, one of the members of the family said to the Chafetz Chaim, your time is so precious. To go open up the sefer after the person leaves, and every 5 minutes another person came in, you close the svarim, you have to open them again, open. Why don't you just leave them open? So the Chafetz Chaim says, you know why? Because the person that came to see me, he has a need. He's in pain. He needs a bracha. I have to give him, or he wants an eitzah. I have to give him my fullest attention. And if I'm sitting there with a sefer, and even if I'm not reading the sefer, but if I have it sitting on my desk open, the person will sense as if, like, I can't wait to get back to the sefer. And that's why I have to close the Sefer in order that people should feel dignified when they come to visit me. And that's an example of how the Chafetz Chaim felt that the ensuring that a person's dignity is not compromised and making a person feel good and treating a person with the proper respect, that's not it. We may call it mitzvahs kalos, a mitzvah light, but that's really the mitzvah chamor. That's a severe mitzvah. We trample those types of mitzvahs with our heel, but those are the mitzvahs that we have to pay the most attention to. And if we will do so, then all the rewards of the Parsha, read the Psukim, they're so magnificent. If we focus on the mitzvahs kalos, then the reward will be tremendous. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful Shabbos.